This list is bound to spark debate. Choosing only 16 among some of the games closest to perfection was an absurdly difficult task. I spent weeks revisiting many of them, analyzing every detail, reliving the experiences, and even rethinking my own choices. After a long time reflecting, I finally arrived at the final version of this selection. And honestly, if you haven't played any of these titles yet, I recommend you don't waste any time, because we never really know how much time we have to live great experiences. So let's get straight to the point. No fluff, no paid placements, no bot rankings. Just my most honest and transparent opinion. Red Dead Redemption 2. Man, starting this list with Red Dead Redemption 2 almost feels like cheating because in 2026, it's still the undisputed final boss of open-world engineering. When I say you need to play this before you die, I'm not just talking about the story of Arthur Morgan, which is a Shakespearean tragedy in its own right. I'm talking about the hyper-realism simulation. Technically, Rockstar did something here that most studios are still too scared to try. They implemented a physics-based world logic where everything has weight. The way the mud deforms under your horse's hooves using a dynamic displacement mesh, the way the lighting filters through the humidity of the Lemoyne swamps. It's a visual flex that still humbles current-gen releases. But the real soul is in the global AI persistence. Every NPC in this game isn't just a background prop. They have routines, they react to your clothes, your hygiene, and your reputation. The technical achievement of the strap system, where every item Arthur carries is physically tethered to his body and reacts to gravity, creates an immersion that is borderline obsessive. It's a slow burn masterpiece that asks you to stop rushing and actually live in the 1899 American frontier. If you haven't sat by a campfire under a 4K star-filled sky in the Grizzlies, you're missing out on the pinnacle of what human hands can create in a digital space. It's not just a game, it's a living, breathing achievement.
When you need only accept the sacred gift.
Resident Evil 4 Remake. Now, let's talk about a game that is a literal masterclass in pacing and combat flow. Resident Evil 4 Remake is the perfect example of how you take a legendary blueprint and use 2026 era tech to make it feel brand new. What makes this a must-play before you die is the tactile survival tech. Using the RE engine, Capcom perfected the parry system and the stagger logic. Technically, the game uses a sophisticated hit reaction system where enemies don't just have health bars, they have physical zones. Shoot a Ganado in the leg and they trip realistically. Parry a chainsaw with your knife and the sparks use a high-end particle simulation that reflects off Leon's leather jacket. The atmosphere is where the PS5 and high-end PCs really scream. The volumetric fog in the village and the way the lighting interacts with the gore mesh, which allows for real-time dismemberment and body deformation, creates a sense of dread that is purely technical. But the reason it's on this list is the combat loop. It's a dance. You're managing resources, space, and time in a way that feels incredibly rewarding. It's the ultimate gold standard for action horror. It humbles modern shooters by proving that every single bullet you fire should feel like a life or death decision. If you want to feel your heart rate hit 120 while playing a game, this is the one.
Like I told you.
God of War 2018. When Santa Monica Studio decided to bring back Kratos, they didn't just make an action game. They created a technical and narrative revolution. The biggest technical flex in God of War 2018, which still humbles the industry today, is the no-cut camera. This entire game, from the opening shot to the final credits, is one single continuous take. There are no loading screens, no cuts to black, and no camera jumps. This required an insane level of level streaming and asset loading behind the scenes that most developers wouldn't even attempt. It forces a level of intimacy with the characters that you just can't get anywhere else. But let's talk about the Leviathan axe.
From a technical standpoint, that axe is one of the greatest toys ever coded. The haptic recall, the way the axe vibrates the controller as it flies back to your hand, combined with the animation blending where Kratos catches it seamlessly, is perfection. The combat weight is achieved through a mix of hit stops, freezing the frame for a microsecond on impact, and camera shakes that make you feel every blow. It's a story about a father and son wrapped in a technical masterpiece of Norse mythology. It's a game that respects your intelligence and your emotions equally. If you haven't felt the weight of that axe in your hand, you haven't experienced the peak of third-person combat. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. I know I talk about this game a lot, but you cannot have a play before you die list without The Witcher 3. Even years later, and especially with the 2026 level next-gen updates, this game humbles modern RPGs through its branching narrative logic. Technically, we're talking about a quest web that tracks thousands of tiny decisions. In most games, a choice changes a line of dialogue. In The Witcher 3, a choice you made in a swamp 20 hours ago can result in a main character dying or an entire village being wiped out. The world building is achieved through environmental storytelling. The Red Engine 3 and its updated versions uses a global wind and weather system that makes the trees in Velen look like they're actually suffering through a storm. The music, the voice acting, and the bestiary system, where you actually have to study a monster's technical weaknesses before a fight, create a layer of preparation-based gameplay that most RPGs have abandoned for mindless button mashing. It's a game with a soul so thick you can feel it in every conversation. It's about the lesser evil, and it's a journey that will stay with you for the rest of your life. If you haven't wandered the streets of Novigrad or the islands of Skellige, you haven't seen what a world can truly be.
The Last of Us Part 1. If we're talking about games you need to experience before you die, we have to talk about the gold standard of emotional and technical fidelity. The Last of Us is often praised for its story, but in 2026, we need to appreciate the Naughty Dog magic behind the scenes. Technically, the game is a masterclass in character expression and AI synergy. The remake utilizes a motion matching system where Joel and Ellie's movements aren't just pre-baked animations, they are procedurally blended to react to the terrain, the distance from a wall, and even their emotional state. The real technical humbler here is the companion AI. Ellie isn't just a bot following you, she's a functioning part of the combat logic. She calls out enemy positions, hides when you hide, and interacts with the environment in a way that feels 100% human. The lighting, especially the way it bounces off organic surfaces like skin and moss using subsurface scattering, creates a photorealistic dread that most horror games can't touch. It's a game that uses every bit of the PS5's processing power not just for pretty graphics, but to make you care about the characters. It's a brutal, beautiful, and deeply human journey through the ruins of civilization. If you haven't felt the tension of a clicker clicking in a dark basement, you haven't felt true gaming tension.
The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. You might think you've seen everything Skyrim has to offer, but in 2026, this game still humbles the industry through its sense of total autonomy. Most modern open worlds are theme parks. You go where the developer tells you. Skyrim is a sandbox in the purest sense. Technically, the Radiant AI and storytelling system is what keeps it alive. Every NPC has a 24-hour schedule. They sleep, they work, they have relationships. If you kill a shopkeeper, their relative might take over the store. That level of world persistence is something most 2026 AAA games are still too lazy to implement. The technical secret sauce is the creation engine's object handling. Every single item in the world, every cheese wheel, every sword, every book, is a persistent physics object. You can hoard 5,000 cabbages in your house, and the game will remember exactly where they are. This creates a physical reality that makes the world of Tamriel feel tangible, and when you factor in the modding community, Skyrim becomes a literal infinite game. It's a technical platform for your own imagination. It's the ultimate escapism game. And if you haven't climbed the 7,000 steps to High Hrothgar while the soundtrack swells, man, you haven't lived your best gaming life yet.
Why don't you swallow that stubborn pride of yours and ask Yorland Greymane for help?
That's
Half-Life 2. We have to pay respects to the king of physics-based level design. Half-Life 2 was released over 2 decades ago, but it still humbles modern shooters because of its technical integrity. This was the game that introduced the world to the Source engine and the gravity gun. While modern games use physics for visual flair, Half-Life 2 uses physics as a core gameplay language. You don't just press E to solve a puzzle, you use the weight of objects to tip a seesaw or create a bridge. The facial animation system was years ahead of its time. Even today, the way Alex Vance looks at you and expresses emotion feels more real than many modern characters because it was built on actual human muscle movements, FACS. The world pacing is also a technical masterclass, shifting from a claustrophobic city to a high-speed vehicle chase to a survival horror segment in Ravenholm, all without losing its mechanical soul. It's the game that taught the industry how to tell a story through the environment without ever taking control away from the player. It is a masterpiece of invisible design, and it is mandatory for anyone who calls themselves a gamer. Elden Ring. To finish this block, we have the game that redefined the sense of wonder for a new generation, Elden Ring. From Software took the Souls formula and exploded it into a world that humbles the industry through art direction and scale. Technically, Elden Ring doesn't rely on the map marker fluff of other open worlds. Instead, it uses visual landmark design. You don't look at a minimap, you look at the horizon, see a massive glowing Erd tree or a floating castle, and you just go. The technical execution of the legacy dungeons, massive, intricate structures woven seamlessly into the open world, is a feat of level architecture that hasn't been matched. The combat variety is staggering. The engine handles hundreds of different weapons, spells, and ashes of war, each with their own unique frame data and particle effects, without breaking a sweat. But the real reason it's on this list is the discovery dopamine. Every corner you turn could lead to a boss that looks like a beautiful nightmare or a hidden underground city. It's a game that trusts the player's curiosity and rewards it with some of the most stunning dark fantasy visuals ever created. It is a 10 out of 10 masterpiece that proves that content is king. Mass Effect 2. If you want to understand the pinnacle of character-driven RPG design, you have to play Mass Effect 2. In 2026, it still humbles every other sci-fi title because of its technical narrative branching. BioWare didn't just write a story, they built a decision engine. The way the game tracks your choices from the first game and carries them into this one, affecting which characters live, die, or even recognize you, is a feat of save data logic that most modern studios find too risky to implement. The real technical achievement, though, is the suicide mission architecture. The final act of this game is a complex web of if-then variables. Your upgrades, your squad's loyalty, and your tactical choices are all calculated in the background to determine who survives the final push. It's not a scripted cutscene, it's a living result of your entire 40-hour journey. The cinematic lighting and the conversation wheel tech created a level of BioWare magic, where the characters, like Garrus or Mordin, feel like actual friends. It's a game about the Dirty Dozen in space, and it manages to balance high-stakes action with deep emotional intimacy in a way that feels like a $200 million interactive movie. If you haven't stood on the bridge of the Normandy and looked out at the Omega Nebula, you haven't experienced the soul of the RPG genre.
Portal 2 is a game that humbles the industry through mathematical elegance and comedy. Valve took a simple mechanic, opening 2 portals, and turned it into a technical masterclass of spatial physics. Most games struggle to handle objects passing through mirrors or windows. Portal 2 handles recursive portals, where light, momentum, and physical objects are calculated across 2 points in space with 0 latency. But the technical flex here is the fluid and gel physics. The blue bounce gel and orange speed gel aren't just floor textures, they are material shaders that change the physical properties of the world's surfaces on the fly. The way the Aperture Science facility literally moves and rebuilds itself around you, with thousands of moving panel animations, is a feat of scripted environmental engineering that still looks next-gen in 2026. And let's not forget the co-op campaign, which doubles the technical complexity by adding 2 more portals into the mix. It is a perfect game. No fluff, no bugs, just pure, brilliant logic puzzles, wrapped in the best writing in gaming history. It proves that you don't need a 100-hour open world if your 10-hour puzzle game is this flawlessly designed.
Grand Theft Auto 5. I know we talk about GTA 5 a lot, but from a before you die perspective, it's a mandatory study in world building and data streaming. Even in 2026, the way Rockstar managed to make Los Santos feel like a living, breathing machine is a technical miracle. The euphoria physics integrated with the Rage engine means that every car crash, every explosion, and every NPC interaction is a dynamic, unscripted event. The real humbler here is the scale-to-detail ratio. Most games give you size but sacrifice detail. GTA 5 gives you a map the size of a city and then models the individual trash on the sidewalk and the radio stations that react to the weather. The 3-character system isn't just a gimmick, it's a technical solution to open-world travel fatigue. By allowing you to switch and see what Trevor is doing across the map, the game keeps the world feeling active and alive 24/7. It's a satirical mirror of our world, and the sheer amount of content density, from golfing to flying planes to deep-sea diving, makes it a game that you don't just play, you explore for years. It is the definitive urban sandbox, and it sets a standard for polish that most modern games still can't reach.
Finally, we have the game that changed the DNA of modern gaming, Dark Souls. This game humbles the industry through interconnected level design. Before open worlds were the norm, Dark Souls gave us Lordran, a vertical labyrinthine masterpiece where every area is physically connected. Technically, the way the game Z-buffers the world, allowing you to see the Duke's archives from the Undead Burg miles away, creates a sense of physical place that modern games often fake with skyboxes. The combat logic is built on frame data and hitbox precision. It isn't about stats, it's about timing and spatial awareness. The asynchronous multiplayer, where you see the ghosts of other players dying or read their messages, is a technical innovation that changed how we think about online connectivity. It's a game about the struggle, but it's also a game about world building through silence. It doesn't give you a mini-map or a quest log. It trusts your eyes and your brain. It is a 10 out of 10 masterpiece of atmospheric dread and rewarding difficulty. If you haven't felt the relief of finding a bonfire after a 2-hour trek through Blighttown, you haven't felt the true high of gaming.
Bioshock. Man, Bioshock isn't just a game, it's a philosophical heavy hitter wrapped in one of the most technically impressive atmospheric simulations of its time. What humbles the industry even in 2026 is the environmental cohesion. When you first descend into Rapture, the way the water presses against the glass and the deferred lighting interacts with the Art Deco architecture isn't just for show, it's there to sell the claustrophobia. Technically, the water shaders were a decade ahead of their time, creating a wet, glistening look on every surface that makes the city feel like it's actually drowning. But the real next-gen soul of Bioshock is the systemic combat. You aren't just shooting, you're manipulating the environment. Using the AI ecosystem, where big daddies, little sisters, and splicers all have their own needs and behaviors, creates unscripted moments that modern shooters still struggle to replicate. The plasmid system allows for chemical interaction. If you shock a puddle, every NPC in that water takes damage. It's a game that asks, "Would you kindly?" and then proceeds to deconstruct the very idea of player agency. It's a masterpiece of narrative subversion and art direction that proves a shooter can be the smartest thing in the room.
Bloodborne. If Dark Souls is the foundation, Bloodborne is the aggressive, blood-soaked evolution that humbles everything in the action RPG genre. Technically, this game is a masterclass in Lovecraftian world-building through detail. Using the PS5's hardware to its limit, especially in the updated 2026 versions, the cloth and fur physics are terrifyingly real. When you're fighting a beast, the way its fur mops up your blood and the way the volumetric fog of Yharnam clings to your hunter's cape creates an atmosphere of pure, unfiltered nightmare. The technical flex here is the regain system and the trick weapons. Every weapon has two forms with completely unique frame data and hitboxes, effectively doubling the combat complexity. The global illumination in the hunter's dream and the way the world literally shifts its geometry as your insight increases is a psychological trick that only gaming can pull off. It's a game that rewards aggression over defense, turning the Souls formula on its head. It's fast, it's visceral, and it has a visual identity that is so consistent and haunting that it ruins other horror games. If you haven't seen the moon turn red over Yharnam, your gaming journey isn't finished yet.
Uncharted 2 Among Thieves. Uncharted 2 is the game that taught the industry how to do playable blockbusters. In 2026, it still humbles modern adventure titles because of its technical set-piece engineering. The train level, where you're fighting across a moving vehicle that is actually traversing a physical landscape, was a technical impossible when it launched. Naughty Dog used a relative coordinate system to make sure the physics worked perfectly, even while the environment was screaming past at 60 miles per hour. The cinematic blend is the real hero here. The transition between gameplay and cutscene is so seamless that you often don't realize you've regained control until Nathan Drake starts stumbling over his own feet. The AI buddy tech for Chloe and Sully ensures they never get in your way but always feel like they're part of the action. It's a game of flow, from the snowy wreckage of a train hanging over a cliff to the vibrant markets of Nepal. It's the ultimate Indiana Jones fantasy, and the human-scale animations make Drake feel like a real guy who is constantly in over his head. It's pure, distilled fun, and it's the definitive movie game that actually works. The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. Finally, we have the game that humbles the industry by subtracting the fluff. Breath of the Wild is a technical miracle not because of its polygon count, but because of its chemistry engine. While other games have scripts, Zelda has rules. Wood burns, metal conducts electricity, and wind moves objects. Technically, the way these systems interact, allowing you to start a grass fire to create an updraft for your glider, is a level of systemic freedom that most open worlds are still trying to copy 10 years later. The art direction humbles photorealism. By using a cel-shaded painterly style, Nintendo created a world that looks better in 2026 than games with 10 times the texture resolution. The lack of a mini-map is a technical choice that forces you to engage with the environmental landmark design. You see a mountain, you wonder what's on top, and the game actually lets you climb it. There are no invisible walls. It is a game about the joy of discovery and the solitude of the wild. It is a 10 out of 10 masterpiece that proves that the best graphics aren't the ones that look like a photo, but the ones that feel like a memory. And that's it. The 16 games that define what it means to be a masterpiece. As we look at these titles in 2026, it's clear that the common thread isn't just good graphics or big maps, it's vision. These are games that took technical risks, pushed their respective engines to the breaking point, and never sacrificed their soul for a marketing bullet point. But now, I want to hear from you. Which of these 16 is your number one? Is there a game I missed that you would put on your own Before I Die list? Let's get a massive discussion going in the comments.